What's happening, my beautiful people? My name is Mike LaBelle. Welcome back to the YouTube channel. Today, special upload. We're gonna explain squad building, meta, everything you need to know, and I'm gonna cover what you're doing wrong. Many of you build squads that are not going to give you the ultimate levels of success. I've got you covered. If you want more of this, drop a like on the video. It's gonna be a lot of information. I need you to get into the details, the particulars, and I can do additional follow-up videos that really take that deep dive. We're getting to the deep end. I'm not a great swimmer, which is unrelated to the video. Always been that way. And use the comments, whether it's suggestions, questions, positional prioritization, which is going to be one of the subjects. In fact, throw the subjects on screen. This is what we're covering today. Position, priority, positional, breakdowns, and balancing a team. Many of you make a mistake in some of these areas, at least one of the three. Let's get this party started. You've already liked it. You've already subscribed it. We're wearing blue for team of the season. Without further ado. So what is position priority? Well, it's simple, you see. If you have a budget to work with, which we all do, where should you make your first investments or where should you spend the money? What's more important? I have a few rules of thumb and players that I'm going to prioritize. The first position on the virtual pitch, whether you're playing with 2 strikers or 1 striker, is going to be that striker. That needs to be a main portion of your budget. That guy's scoring goals. He could change everything for you throughout a weekend league. These are just the facts. And typically a more expensive striker is much better than someone who's overpowered or a cheap beast. Tell me I'm lying. You can't. After my striker, I'm going into the center midfield area, that role. And I want to bring this up. I want to stress the importance of center mids, mainly because if you win the middle, you're going to win a lot of the games. You got to conflict, dominate, presence, squish, constrain, withhold, lockdown. And this all depends on your budget, depending how you should prioritize, maybe how much you're spending. But I would go first for a striker, secondly into the center mid, and then my third selection is going to either be an attacker if you're running with the wings or a secondary striker. And I do feel it's that important going forward. We have so much interchangeability defensively, and there's still overpowered defenders. And I'm not sitting here trying to co-sign the boringness of the regular Varane and the Mendy, but the fact is these guys have been active for 6 months, 7 months from the beginning, and those are not expensive players whatsoever. And I can't say the same for the attackers. I can't say the same for some of these monster midfielders when you're dealing with guys that partner up and really shift the program. So I wanted to put that as the top 3 positions that I'm prioritizing. So just to recap, first striker, second one of the center mids, third whether it's an attacker or a winger, or it could be that secondary striker. And then from there you got the party started. You can start rotating, but you want to make sure you shut down the middle of the pitch. You need to win that. I know crossing has gotten more effective recently, but at the end of the day, the wing play is never the first option. That's always secondary. It's more difficult to find special attackers than it is to find special defenders. Moving on. Positional breakdowns. We're going to start with strikers. And I'm generalizing. I want to make sure that you understand there are exceptions. There will always be exceptions, but generally speaking, your striker is going to be somewhere between 5'8", 5'9", up to about 6'1". And you want a lean or a normal body type. Once they start getting thick, you lose the turnability. And when you don't have the ability to turn an opposition, it ruins the creativity, the movement, what your striker can and should be able to do. So you need high balance, high agility. That's why we stress that. I would also recommend at least 4 or 5 star skill moves or 4 or 5 star weak foot. You got to have one or the other. There are, of course, obvious exceptions. We've talked about Podolski, we've talked about Robin, but it's still a detriment. If either of those players had a better weak foot, it would definitely change the value associated with them. And they also have 5 star skills, which is able to offset. So there's that balance. If you're missing one, you got to have the other. 4-4 is good to go. A 5-3 can work in your favor, but you're not going to get away with a 4-3 too frequently. For example, it doesn't matter weak foot or skill moves. I'm not saying it's not possible, but generally speaking, that's really what this video is. It's a guide. Wingers, 5'6" up to about 5'11". It's so strange in the US that we use feet in inches and not centimeters like the rest of the world. Similar to the strikers, lean body type, normal body type. You do not want thick wingers, and you really don't want guys that have a lot of size. Are there rule breakers? For sure. But these guys have to be able to make quick cuts and threaten the fullbacks. If your wingers are not fast enough to get in behind the fullbacks or the center backs, they're not going to threaten, then you got to get them out of there. That is going to be a complete liability, and it's more difficult to use those types of players. You're just going to lose that positional matchup constantly. I also believe you can use one winger that maybe doesn't have the skills if the other winger does, but he's got to have the weak foot. I don't really enjoy wingers that lack weak foots. It just seems as if we get a little more predictable, and it really impacts some of the crossing and the switching of the pitch. Maybe that's been the big focal point where I've put more pressure or impact on needing at least a 4-star weak foot for my wingers. Center mids, we're really talking box to box, but defensive midfielders as well. 5'9" to 6'4", speed, skills, weak foot, and the physical matters. Most importantly is the stamina. If this player or players does not have high stamina, the foot item is ruined. I'm talking at least an 85 plus, preferably a 90 and a 90 plus, because they got to run a lot. You're expecting them to be able to track back. If you don't have that option, or you can't progress the attack, you lose the ability to be dynamic, to be progressive, to be free-flowing. It doesn't work. It's going to ruin this position. I know the height fluctuates a lot because there are 5'9" guys that are able to get the job done, especially if they have a little bit of a bigger build. And at the same time, if you can get additional size without losing too much on the agility standpoint, it's also not a bad trade-off. We've seen what Ruud Hull has been able to accomplish for multiple years now in this role. Fullbacks. It's gotten kind of weird. So we're going to talk fullbacks playing as fullbacks, which deals with pace, positioning, and physical. And I bring up physical mainly because if they don't have the strength, you end up with a Jordi Alba type who's just not being used. And the stamina cannot be poor. It cannot be lackluster because they're going to track back all game long down the wings. Even more so if you're playing a 5 at the back, or you have your wingers getting involved constantly in the attack. So they're not just sitting back. Now, fullbacks as center backs. They got to go at least 6 foot to 6'2", 6'3". I just don't think there's many 6'3" fullbacks. 85 plus strength is the big key for that position. Of course, having the same stats as a traditional fullback with the pace and the positioning. And then for center backs, it's usually 5'11" to 6'5". Similar rule of thumb, 85 plus strength. I just don't like guys that can't win 50-50s. They don't get stuck in. And maybe the big takeaway is they got to be fast. That agility, that balance. If it's trashed here, usually you're going to struggle. I know some of you will bring up Varane. He's an exception. He doesn't really fall under any of the normal rules. His stats don't make sense. He's Varane. And you just toss it up to him being himself or whatever monster they've created in FIFA 21. And what's happened this year is it's just easier to find fullbacks that have enough of the center back attributes and characteristics to use them as center backs. And that's not going to change as a trend. And you receive faster players on the back end, especially with the lateral movement. Balancing a team. Back to the squad building menu. For that screenshot. And I'd love to see a bunch of squads and maybe critique. If you'd like that, comment below. Maybe upvote some of these comments. It just tells me that it's worth putting together. These are the mistakes that I've noticed with balancing a squad, and we're going to do this quick fire style. Too many players without skills. Makes you more predictable. Too many players without the weak foot. Kind of a similar issue, but it's also, you just got to have more unforced error. Too small of a team. A lot of you get caught up in the agility and the movement, and then you don't have any size. On the vice versa, too big of a team. Guys throw a bunch of 6'3", 6'4" players and everybody's moving in slow-mo. You got no progression of the attack. Your defensive chase back is delayed. These lazy lunges, you don't want that. Too many left-footed players. That's also problematic. Everybody's looking to cut inside, and you've built that habit. You've built that notion or that motion where you know you have to move the ball to the inside. You got to get on his left foot. It's natural. We do this. Using players in non-meta matchups. Like I said earlier, if you had a slower winger, he's not going to beat that fullback. Most fullbacks are very fast. And too many people get connected or have sentimental value, and they do this too often in their squad building. Can you get away with that sometimes? Yeah, for sure. But you can't have a team full of matchups that are just not going to allow you a competitive advantage. Midfield alignment. You're too offensively focused or you're too defensively focused. I've seen a lot of center mid partnerships where neither of the guys can score a goal if their life depended on it. You can't run the old school methodology that we've seen throughout the past where you just had big gladiators and super defensive matchups. I don't think I would co-sign or recommend the Conte with the Vieira. Defensively, are they sound? 100%. And then you also got a mix between size and agility, but neither of them offer you anything offensively. Do you see where I'm going here? And on the reverse end, some of y'all go way too attacking, and then you don't have guys that actually impact the defensive side of the pitch, and your midfield's wide open. Traditional center backs, I understand you don't want to play fullbacks as center backs, but too many of you go with real traditional center backs that are just not going to fit meta. There's some that do, but you can't just run anybody in that position, and it's very, very important to the outcome of your games. Misunderstanding your own personal play style. You watch people play, but you can't relate. That's not how you get down. A perfect example would be, let's look at wingers. Do you play a lefty on the right? Do you play him on the left? Well, do you cut inside or do you run down the line? If you're running down the line more, a lefty is going to be better suited on the left side of the pitch. If you're someone who cuts inside, you look for finesse shots. You're pretty good with some of the skills and those intricacies. Then a lefty might be better suited on the right side of the pitch, because that's something that's going to tailor to your gameplay and you're good at it. Prioritizing assets you don't connect with. That's right, I gave you 10. Quick fire balancing a team. What this means, if you're not good at skill moves and you got a whole team of skillers, why? You don't get to maximize anything that they're doing. That's not you. You got to be very honest with yourself. Let's say you're a through ball player. You might be able to manifest some greatness with the likes of a Jamie Vardy or an Aubameyang. Very straight edge, straight line. Not for everyone, but they could be perfect for you. Thanks again for watching. If you enjoyed the content, make sure to drop some love. Let me know. Do you have any questions? Are you enjoying this type of video? Do you want more of it? But we are uploading daily, and it is Team of the Season. Turn on the notifications. I'll see you at the live stream. I'll see you on the YouTubes. Second channel upload is happening this week, every single week. Make sure to turn on some notifications there as well. If you want a little mix-up of content, I'll see you tomorrow.